look at the apps on your phone right now. I mean, look at the Apple logo on the back of your device, or the swoosh on your sneakers, or even the goldy arches on that fast food bag sitting on your desk.
Right, they're just everywhere.
Yeah, and you probably think those shapes were born in, like a sudden, brilliant flash of lightning. There is this incredibly pervasive myth that great design is just a spontaneous eruption of raw talent.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very romanticized myth. People picture the artist sitting alone in a studio, staring at a blank canvas or an empty artboard, just waiting for the muse to whisper in their ear.
Right, and then boom, the perfect shape just manifests out of thin air like it's a purely artistic, emotional release.
Yeah, but it is completely false. We desperately want to believe in the magic of it because, well, understanding the actual mechanics takes away a bit of the mystique.
But the truth is, if you step into the actual professional world of graphic design, specifically brand identity and logo creation relying on a romantic lightning strike isn't just insufficient.
No, it is a massive professional liability. If you sit around waiting for inspiration, you are going to starve.
Exactly. We are looking at a landscape that is far more demanding, far more rigid, and infinitely more strategic than most people realize.
It is the absolute definition of a rigorous psychological and ultimately mathematical discipline. I mean, it is a pipeline.
A strict pipeline.
Yeah, and mastering that pipeline is exactly what separates the amateurs who are constantly revising their work from the career professionals who actually deliver iconic, lasting results.
And that is exactly why you are here with us today. So welcome to the Deep Dive. If you are someone who is just starting your career in graphic design, or if you are simply obsessed with the invisible mechanics of the visual world around you, we are taking you behind the curtain.
We really are going deep today.
We are going to break down the core foundational design concepts that turn a vague business idea into a global identifier. We are tracing the entire life cycle of a logo.
From a messy, almost feral abstract idea scribbled on a piece of scrap paper, all the way to a pixel-perfect, mathematically gridded brand asset.
The kind of asset that a Fortune 500 company can slap on a billboard. And our roadmap for this journey today is an absolutely essential body of knowledge. We are specifically drawing from the design process chapter within a book called Principles of Logo Design.
It's such a crucial text. Our goal today is to completely reframe how you think about your daily work.
Yeah.
We want to help you understand the deep why behind every single step of this process.
Right, not just the surface level. Because, I mean, anyone can watch a tutorial on how to click a mouse and use a pen tool.
Exactly. But knowing when to use it, why to use it, and more importantly, when to step entirely away from it, that is the actual secret.
Okay, let's get right into it. Before you can draw a single line, before you even sharpen a pencil, you have to know what you're actually trying to communicate.
You do. Every great design has to start with a concept.
But what is a logo really, at its mechanical core?
Well, at its core, a logo is an identifier. That is its singular overriding function. But it isn't just a basic name tag, right?
Right. It has to do more heavy lifting than that.
Exactly. It has to conceptually, stylistically, or metaphorically reflect the exact essence of the brand itself. The marks that make the strongest, most immediate first impressions are the ones that depict clever concepts.
But they also have to look good, right? They need incredibly sound visual appeal.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot have a clever, deeply intellectual idea that just looks terrible to the human eye. And conversely, you cannot have a beautifully balanced golden ratio shape that means absolutely nothing to the consumer.
It has to be a perfect marriage of meaning and aesthetics. And there's a fantastic visual example from the source that perfectly illustrates this marriage in action.
Oh, the S logo.
Yeah, the S logo. Imagine a logo shaped like the letter S. But the designer didn't just type out an S in a nice font. It starts with a literal physical object.
Right, they start with something completely grounded in reality.
Exactly. Imagine a piece of paper, specifically a paper bill, like currency. It has this very subtle, elegant wave to it, the way a dollar bill looks when it's just resting on a table.
A very tangible item.
Yeah. And then imagine extending the top and bottom corners of that waving piece of paper. You just pull those lines out so they continue the natural trajectory of the wave.
Okay, so you're stretching it.
Right. Then you take a pair of digital scissors and you crop those extensions. You chop them at specific geometric angles to achieve the rough silhouette of an S.
And then the refinement happens.
Exactly. Finally, you refine the whole thing. The final S looks incredibly smooth, it flows beautifully, yet it retains these sharp, distinct, paper-like edges at the terminals.
It is a brilliant distillation. You take a literal concept financial paper and abstract it through a series of logical steps until it becomes a clever, visually pleasing typographic identifier.
Okay, let's unpack this. What makes a brief truly useful? Because finding that right concept is arguably the most grueling part of the job.
It really is. It requires profound, deeply analytical preparation. And that preparation always, without exception, starts with a design brief.
Ah, the brief. The document that every designer loves to hate, but absolutely needs to survive.
Precisely. To even begin this process, you must have a name and a detailed design brief. You need down-to-earth, rational, absolutely clear directions from the client.
You are essentially playing investigative journalist.
You are. You're gathering information ranging from the brand's overarching big idea and mission statement, all the way down to the most minuscule, seemingly boring details of their daily operations.
But here's where we need to throw out a lot of conventional wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of agencies will hand you a brief that just lists the basic characteristics.
Yeah, they just give you a checklist.
Right. It will say, our target demographic is women ages 18 to 34, our main competitor is brand X, and we want a blue and silver color scheme. And the designer is supposed to take that and make magic.
But that is fundamentally not enough information to build an iconic mark. It rarely is.
Because demographics and market positioning, they don't give you visual geometry.
No, they don't.
So what is the secret ingredient? Like, if demographic data isn't enough, what actually helps you draw a shape?
Adjectives.
Adjectives.
Yes. Adjectives that reflect the core idea of the brand are the most useful tools for the entire design process. They provide abstract visual clues.
Oh, that makes sense. Because of how our brains process language versus images, right?
Exactly. A demographic like women ages 18 to 34 is a statistical reality. It doesn't give you a shape, a line weight, or a texture. But adjectives.
Words like ethereal or grounded.
Right. Kinetic, steadfast, agile, those words act as a bridge. They immediately conjure up specific shapes and physical properties in a designer's mind.
So, like, steadfast feels like a heavy, bold, blocky serif font.
Exactly. And kinetic feels like forward-leaning, italicized, sharp vectors. Adjectives translate business strategy into visual symbolism.
I love that concept of adjectives as the bridge. But wait, I have to push back and challenge this whole reliance on the brief. Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Let's talk about the dream scenario for an agency. A well-funded client comes to you and says, we have a name, but we have no brief. We trust you completely. You have total creative freedom. Build our identity from the ground up.
The famous blank check.
Exactly. Isn't that a massive financial opportunity? I mean, I can charge them for a massive multi-week discovery phase, build their strategy, and design exactly what I want without a client micromanaging me. Why is a blank slate considered a red flag instead of a goldmine?
I mean, it sounds like a lucrative gold mine, yes. But from a pure design execution standpoint, total creative freedom from a client is actually a trap.
A trap? How so?
Because it usually signifies something far more dangerous. The client lacks a vision for their own corporate soul. They just don't know who they are.
Right, but isn't it my job to tell them who they are?
It is your job to translate who they are visually. If they fundamentally do not know their own business identity, expecting you to essentially invent their corporate soul from scratch through graphic design is putting the cart miles before the horse.
So without those parameters, without those adjectives, the designer is forced to guess.
Precisely. You are basically throwing darts in a pitch-black room, hoping the client tells you when you hit the board.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. You might hit the bullseye eventually, but the reality of this approach is that it requires dozens of completely disparate initial concepts and endless grueling iterations.
And even then, there often aren't enough hours in the budget to guarantee you land on the correct solution.
Right. Because here's the psychological catch. Without constraints, you have established no criteria for success. The client won't know what they want until they see it.
Which means their only method of finding it is rejecting everything they don't want first.
Exactly. It turns the process into an exhausting, margin-killing guessing game. Constraints aren't shackles, they are scaffolding. You need a box so you can know what it means to think outside of it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The blank check is actually a blank void. So let's say we have our box, we have our brief, we have our demographics, and we have our adjectives.
Good, now we can work.
But how strictly do we adhere to the demographics? Like, if my brief says, target audience, lumberjacks, Do I automatically have to use a flannel pattern and an axe?
Not at all, and this is a crucial nuance that separates junior designers from senior strategists. Brand personality does not strictly dictate the aesthetic based purely on the demographic.
It's not a rigid one-to-one rule. Right?
Exactly. Just because your target audience belongs to a certain demographic bucket doesn't mean your visual identity must aggressively stereotype them.
Right, you can play with expectations. You could be designing an identity for a predominantly Asian market, but strategically utilize a distinctly European minimalist aesthetic to stand out on the shelf.
Yes, exactly. Or you could have a male-oriented brand, say, a men's skincare line that utilizes a traditionally feminine, delicate visual language to communicate gentleness and care.
Oh, or one of my favorites. Designing children's products with visual identities engineered to appeal almost entirely to adults.
That last one is a perfect example. Why would a company making a toy for a toddler design a logo that looks like it belongs on a high-end coffee table book?
Right, because the toddler isn't buying it.
Exactly. It all depends on the long-term brand strategy. Think about the purchasing psychology. A wooden Montessori toy isn't bought by the 2-year-old. It is bought by the 35-year-old parent.
So an identity that appeals to an adult sense of environmental sustainability, safety, nostalgia, or sophisticated interior design might actually be the vastly superior strategic choice.
Way better than a logo that is just loud, primary colors and cartoon bubble letters.
You are designing for the wallet, not just the end user. It's a multi-layered psychological game. But what happens when you don't even have those layers to play with?
Ah, the startup dilemma.
Exactly. We have to acknowledge that most brands that need logos aren't massive conglomerates with deep strategic insights. They are startups. And startups often cannot afford a fully developed brand strategy in their early stages.
And sometimes, neither the name of the brand nor what the brand actually does contains any plausible, literal, visual clues.
It is the blank page problem magnified. You have a name like Acme, you have no strategy document, and you have to make a mark. What do?
You turn to word association. You comb through whatever scraps of conversation or brief you have, and you look for keywords.
It's those adjectives and verbs again?
Right, words that can be visually expressed. Words like connection, speed, unity, network, care, stability, balance. These words point you in a productive geometric direction.
Can you give us a real-world example of this? Because it sounds a bit abstract.
Sure. Let's look at a brilliant real-world example of this exact problem-solving technique. Take the Georgian Pediatric Association.
Okay. Pediatric Association is a very clinical, institutional, sterile concept. It doesn't instantly scream a specific, unique shape.
No, it doesn't. You could draw a stethoscope, but that's generic. You could draw a baby, but that's incredibly difficult to do without looking creepy or overly cartoonish.
Right, it's a visual dead end. But if you use word association, if you extract words like care, protection, growth, connection, nurturing, you arrive at the brilliant logo they actually created.
Yes. Imagine an illustration of a hand. A large, dark adult hand swooping around in a protective, almost semicircular gesture.
But the genius is in the negative space, isn't it?
Exactly. The white space perfectly nestled inside that dark adult hand forms the exact silhouette of a small child's hand.
Oh, wow. It is absolutely brilliant. It takes an abstract institutional concept of pediatric care and turns it into an immediate emotional and visually striking symbol of protection.
It is a beautiful synthesis of form and meaning, and sometimes you get incredibly lucky, and the visual clue isn't abstract at all. It is hiding right there in the literal name itself.
Exactly. Like if the brand is named D4 Studios, the concept is practically doing the heavy lifting for you.
It really is. The letter D and the number 4 possess very strong, distinct visual architecture on their own.
So exploring a monogram that physically weaves those two characters together is an incredibly strong, undeniable starting point.
Or you can go even more literal. Take a brand named Limoni, which translates to lemon. The logo can simply be an incredibly well-executed, stylized lemon.
Now I have to stop you there because the design community loves to tear this approach to shreds. I've heard this critique 1,000 times in design school and on design Twitter.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. People argue that literal marks, an apple for apple, a target for target, a lemon for limoni, are too straightforward. They call it lazy. They argue it lacks intellectual cleverness, that it doesn't have that aha moment hidden in the negative space.
It is a very common and frankly very elitist critique, but we must never forget the primary biological function of a logo. It is a rapid identifier.
Right, the brain needs to process it instantly.
Exactly. The human brain is bombarded with thousands of brand messages a day. When a viewer sees that literal mark on its own, without the typography next to it, the brand name is recalled automatically and instantaneously.
The cognitive identification process is vastly quicker with a literal mark than with an abstract swoosh.
Yes, clever negative space is wonderful, but sometimes the absolute most functional, commercially successful design is the most direct one. Speed of recall is a massive competitive advantage.
Okay, so we have our concept, we have our adjectives, we know if we are leaning literal or abstract, we have our strategy. Now what? Do we open up Illustrator and start clicking?
Absolutely not. Before you touch the software, you have to chart the visual territory. You have to build a mood board.
This is a critical transitional step, because once you have the core concept and those abstract adjectives locked in, you need a way to visualize them without prematurely committing to a specific final logo design.
You have to build a visual sandbox to play in.
And I think 90% of junior designers completely misunderstand what a mood board actually is.
Oh, completely. Their process is usually go to Pinterest, search for logos in the tech industry, save 50 of them, paste them onto a giant canvas and say, here is the mood.
But that is a recipe for mediocrity. You should actively avoid limiting your mood board to just other people's brand identities, right?
If you only look at other logos, you will only ever create derivative logos. You're just recycling existing solutions.
Right, you're not inventing anything new.
Exactly. To create something truly iconic, you have to expand your horizons drastically. You should be pulling imagery from completely disparate fields: architecture, nature, classic painting, industrial design, fashion textures.
Let's break down why that works. If my adjectives are grounded, historical, and trustworthy, I shouldn't just look at bank logos. I should look at pictures of Gothic cathedrals.
Yes, the soaring arches, the heavy stone, the permanence of the structure.
Or if my adjectives are agile, transparent, and futuristic, I might pull images of a modern glass skyscraper, or the aerodynamic curves of a bullet train, or the translucent structure of a jellyfish.
Exactly. These sources provide rich, distinct structural reference points that aid in the development of original geometry. You let the specific demands of the project dictate the visual research, not what your competitors are doing.
But it shouldn't just be a chaotic, overwhelming collage of random cool pictures, right?
No, organization is paramount here. You have to compartmentalize the board. You build distinct physical zones on the document.
So you group images with a classic heavy direction in one specific corner. You put your high-tech, futuristic, kinetic styles in another corner.
Right. Keep your highly saturated, colorful styles completely separated from your stark, monochromatic groups. And if you do include logo references to show execution styles, you group those too.
Keep the pictorial marks away from the typographic word marks.
What this organizational discipline does is create clear visual boundaries between entirely different stylistic directions. It allows you to point to a specific quadrant of the board and say, this is the kinetic high-tech aesthetic versus this is the grounded classic aesthetic.
You are mapping the different paths you could potentially walk down before you take a single step, which leads to a massive point of debate in the industry: the client conundrum.
Oh boy, the client conundrum.
I want to ask you this directly because it dictates how you manage a project. Once you have this meticulously organized, beautiful mood board, should you show it to the client? Or do you keep it locked away as a private sandbox just for your own brain?
It is a hotly debated topic. Some agencies insist on client sign-off at the mood board stage to ensure alignment, and certainly some clients forcefully demand to be highly engaged at every step.
But what's the expert move here?
A highly experienced designer will often advocate for a very clear boundary. Strictly limit, or entirely eliminate, client engagement at the mood board stage.
Limit engagement. Hide the work. I love that. But explain the psychology behind why. If it's a collaborative process, why shut them out?
Because of the psychological risk of anchoring. Let's be brutally honest. Most clients do not possess the visual foresight or the abstraction skills of a trained graphic designer. That is why they hired you. They may not have the cognitive ability to see how an initial raw mood, say, that picture of the dark Gothic cathedral and a heavy, moody color palette we mentioned earlier, will actually translate into a modern, refined, highly functional final logo.
Right. They see a picture of a gargoyle on your mood board and they freak out, thinking you're going to make their accounting firm look like a haunted house.
Exactly. They get spooked by the raw materials. Or, conversely, and this is even more dangerous, they might fall completely in love with the mood direction initially.
Like they love the sleek, neon, futuristic, cyberpunk corner of the mood board.
Right. But as you actually start designing, you realize that path doesn't yield a functional result for their specific brand name or industry. By showing them the mood board too early, you risk them anchoring onto a feeling or a literal image that ultimately forces the project down a dead-end street.
Wow.
Sometimes the mood board is just the ugly industrial scaffolding that the designer needs to stand on to build the house. The client shouldn't see the building until the scaffolding is torn down and the paint is dry.
That is such a powerful insight. Protect the incubation phase from the people paying for it. Okay, so the territory is mapped, the mood is set, we know our adjectives. It is finally time to generate forms.
Yes, the fun part.
This brings us to the actual art of sketching, the initial stage. And here is where we have to make a massive demand of the modern digital native designer. The most important rule of this entire phase. You must step completely away from the computer.
Completely away. Close the laptop. Sketching on physical paper is a non-negotiable, essential part of logo development.
And why is that so rigid?
Specifically because it allows a designer to express ideas freely, escaping the immense constraints of technology.
I want to offer an analogy here to explain why this is so critical. Trying to do your initial brainstorming and concept generation using digital design tools like opening Adobe Illustrator and trying to find the logo with your mouse, it feels like trying to choreograph a beautiful, fluid, emotionally resonant contemporary dance.
While wearing a straitjacket.
Exactly, while wearing a straitjacket.
And that is an incredibly apt analogy. The software, specifically the pen tool, is the enemy of initial creativity.
But why is that? We've all been taught that the pen tool is the ultimate weapon of the graphic designer. It's infinitely powerful.
It is infinitely powerful for execution. It is a tool of precision engineering, not a tool for organic ideation. Think about the mechanical difference between a pencil and a mouse.
Okay, let's break that down.
When your imagination generates an abstract idea, your hand naturally wants to reflect it immediately with a fluid, corresponding physical gesture. A pencil on paper makes this a quick, intuitive, instantaneous, and natural transfer of energy from brain to hand to page.
But on a computer, to form that exact same idea digitally, you have to completely change how your brain is functioning.
You have to start doing math.
Let's look at how the pen tool actually works. Pierre Bézier invented the Bézier curve for modeling car bodies. When you click the pen tool, you aren't drawing a line, you are dropping an anchor point in an XY coordinate space.
Right. Then you click somewhere else to drop a second anchor point.
To make a curve, you pull these little handles out, which mathematically dictate the tension and trajectory of the line between those 2 points.
Exactly. It is a complex mathematical operation. You have to think about outlines. You have to place points. You have to move those anchors to precise coordinates. You have to adjust the tension of Bézier curves to achieve the shape.
It is incredibly time-consuming.
And more importantly, it forces your brain out of the right hemisphere state of free, emotional, creative output and forces it into the left hemisphere state of structural engineering.
Your brain is actively thinking in anchor points and tension handles rather than pure conceptual ideas.
Exactly. Sketching builds a direct mind-to-hand-to-paper connection that software completely severs.
So, we have banished the laptop, we have our pencil, we have a stack of cheap printer paper. What does this initial stage actually look like? There's a phrase from the book used to describe this that I absolutely adore, a fever-like activity.
Yes. For this initial stage, the designer must entirely banish the fear of making mistakes. You have to turn off your inner critic completely.
This is not the time to worry about clarity, spacing, perfect form, or a clean silhouette.
No, you are literally pouring raw ideas out of your subconscious onto the paper. The more unrestrained, spontaneous, unconscious, and uninhibited your hand is, the better the results will be.
It's pure chaotic exploration. You are applying rough strokes, imperfect wobbly shapes, careless curves. You are drawing over your own lines. But wait, let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Why value quantity over quality here? Shouldn't a trained professional be trying to draw something fundamentally good right out of the gate? Why not take an hour and draw one concise, highly considered, perfect sketch?
It's a great question. But attempting to draw one perfect sketch completely defeats the purpose of the ideation phase. Because a concise, perfect sketch requires intense concentration.
Right.
It takes conscious, deliberate effort to control the pencil perfectly.
Right.
But when you bypass that conscious concentration, when you sketch so fast that your brain can't keep up with your hand, you open yourself up to spontaneous, rapid impulses. You allow for something magical to happen.
What kind of magic?
We call them unexpected lucky accidents.
Lucky accidents?
Yes. If you are carefully drawing one thing, you only get that one thing. You get exactly what your conscious brain premeditated. But if you are frantically, feverishly sketching 50 variations of a shape in 10 minutes, your hand might slip.
2 lines might cross in a way you didn't consciously intend.
You might smudge the graphite and create a new shadow. And suddenly, hidden in that mistake, there is the genius, iconic concept staring back at you.
You cannot plan a lucky accident. You can only create the frantic conditions necessary for it to occur.
Exactly. You are creating an environment for visual serendipity.
If you do this right, your sketchpad shouldn't look like a neat, Pinterest-ready grid of cute, perfect little drawings. It should look like an absolute disaster.
It should look like a battlefield of semi-formed, unfinished chunks and pieces of concepts.
Like the chaotic evidence of a mad scientist at work. Imagine looking at a designer's sketchbook during this phase. Let's say they are exploring concepts for a monogram based on the uppercase letters F and R.
Oh, that's a classic exercise.
The pages are incredible to look at. They are dense, completely covered in graphite. They are drawn over graph paper, over blank paper, overlapping each other. There are dozens and dozens of variations packed onto a single page.
Right, some are thick, 3D block letters. Some are thin, elegant, continuous single lines. Some are abstract, jagged curves that barely even look like an F anymore.
There are little floral elements sketched next to one, a target sketched next to another. It is frantic. It is a designer visually thinking out loud at top speed, hunting through the mud for that lucky accident.
And that chaos is the absolutely necessary precursor to order. You cannot refine what you have not generated. Which brings us to the next critical phase.
The sketching funnel.
Yes, you have this battlefield of messy, chaotic ideas. How do you find the sole survivor and nurse it into a usable, functional mark? We have to move from the fever dream into calculated surgical refinement.
The refinement stage. This is where we finally start bringing the heart rate down.
Precisely. You have 50 wildly different sketches in front of you. Now you have to make a choice. And the advice here is surprisingly instinctual, not mathematical.
Wait, really? After all this talk of rigorous discipline, we're just relying on our gut, not a geometric formula.
Just your gut. You look at the battlefield and you go with the concept that simply feels like it has the most inherent potential.
Why instinct?
Because at this stage, you have to understand that the selected concept is incredibly raw. The sketch you select from the fever dream is only about 30% of what the final polished version will look like.
Only 30%. It is barely an embryo of an idea.
Right, it's just a hint of a direction. And the goal of this refinement stage is not to finish the logo. The goal is simply to push it from 30% to about 50 or 60%.
You are trying to own the shape, understand its internal logic, develop its basic proportions, and make it familiar to your hand.
Exactly.
So what is the actual physical process of refinement? How do we mechanically get a sketch from 30 to 60%?
It is a tight, iterative loop. You take your chosen messy sketch and you redraw it on a clean piece of paper, trying to clean it up slightly. That is your initial reference.
Okay, so you trace it or copy it.
Then you draw it again right next to it. But here's the key. With every new iteration, you must try something slightly new and improved. You change the arc of a curve, you alter the width of a stem, you shift a proportion.
Then you stop and compare the new sketch to the previous one. Does the new curve feel better? If yes, keep it. If no, discard it.
You are constantly hunting for a balanced flow and a solid, unified outline.
Imagine a visual sequence showing this exact progression. Let's say you are designing a logo that features an abstract, continuous line figure. It looks like a person sitting down, hugging their knees to their chest. A very organic, fluid shape.
Yes, a beautiful, challenging form to refine.
In the first few sketches of this refinement loop, the figure is clunky. The loop that represents the head is too large and heavy. The sharp point representing the knee juts out awkwardly and throws off the balance.
The lines intersect in messy, muddy ways.
But as you draw it, a 5th, 6th, 7th time, you are actively testing microscopic changes. You shrink the head loop slightly so it doesn't overpower the body. You smooth out the harsh curve of the back into a gentle arc.
You adjust the angle of the leg so it tucks in tighter.
By the 9th or 10th sketch, a transformation has occurred. The figure has developed this incredible internal balance and proportion. The flow of the pencil line is finally harmonious. It still looks like a hand-drawn pencil sketch, but the underlying structure is now undeniable.
It has reached that crucial 60% mark. It has good bones, it can stand up on its own, but it is still resting on opaque sketch paper. And this is where we introduce the final, most precise, and frankly, most tedious part of the analog sketching process.
The fine-tuning stage.
Yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because we are still refusing to use the computer, we are moving to a completely different analog tool. Tracing paper.
Tracing paper is the absolute secret weapon of the master designer during the fine-tuning stage.
Unpack this for us. Why tracing paper? Why not just erase and redraw on the same sheet?
Because erasing destroys your history, and redrawing from scratch introduces new, unwanted, lucky accidents. You don't want accidents anymore. You want control.
Ah, I see.
Tracing paper allows for intense micro-adjustments without ever losing the solid 60% foundation you just built. You take that balanced sketch and you lay a semi-transparent sheet of tracing paper directly over it.
You trace the lines you can see underneath, but as your hand moves, you make tiny, deliberate, formal improvements. You make a curve just a millimeter smoother. You make a gap just a hair wider.
Then what?
Then you take a second sheet of blank tracing paper, put it over your new trace, and do it again, over and over.
It is literally an analog version of layers in Photoshop.
Exactly. It is physical layer management. Each subsequent layer of tracing paper refines the formal solutions of the layer beneath it. You are slowly, agonizingly transforming the piece from a sketch into something complete and structurally sound.
The ultimate goal is to arrive at an achieved form that is clean, precise, and highly defined. There is a strict rule here. There should be absolutely no major formal changes to the overall look, feel, or concept after this tracing paper stage is finished.
You solve all the complex design problems, all the proportions, all the curves on the tracing paper, not on the screen.
Never on the screen.
So once that fifth or sixth final tracing paper layer is absolutely perfect, what's next? You take a high-resolution photo of it or you put it through a scanner.
You boost the contrast so the lines are pitch black against a stark white background. Because this scanned image isn't just a sketch anymore, it is your architectural blueprint.
And only now, finally, are you ready to open the laptop.
Which brings us to the most perilous phase of the entire journey: execution. Pixel-perfect patience.
Okay, the paper draft is perfect. You've scanned it in. It's sitting there on your artboard in Illustrator. A lot of people might think, great, the hard part is over. All the creative heavy lifting is done. I just use the pen tool to trace the black lines.
But there is a stark, terrifying warning associated with this phase. All the brilliant strategy, the adjectives, the mood boards, the fever dream sketching. If your digital execution fails, the entire project fails.
A poorly executed genius idea is a bad logo.
It is a profoundly sobering thought. This stage requires an immense amount of patience and technical discipline. You are going to create numerous digital vector versions of the logo, each one only microscopically different from the last.
As you try to perfectly capture the organic soul of the sketch using cold, hard math.
And to survive this digital tracing process, there is what I would call the golden rule of digitizing, a mechanical best practice that every single designer must sear into their brain until it becomes muscle memory. Copy and paste, then manipulate.
It is such a remarkably simple rule, but it will save your sanity, your deadlines, and ultimately your career.
It really will.
I want to highlight exactly why this workflow is so critical. Tracing your beautiful scan sketch with the digital pen tool is not a one-and-done process. It is fought with trial and error.
You might spend 2 hours going down a specific path, adjusting Bezier curves, nudging anchor points, tweaking the tension of a line, only to zoom out and realize that the shape has become totally distorted, lifeless, and completely ruined.
If you have been working on a single isolated file, just hitting save over and over on top of your work, you have effectively destroyed your own progress. You can't get back to where it looked good.
You have painted yourself into a digital corner with no exit. That is exactly why this specific workflow is mandatory. Before you change anything significant on your digital vector shape, you select it, copy it, and paste it directly next to the original, right there on the same infinite artboard.
You make your change to the new version. Then, before you attempt the next curve adjustment, you copy and paste again. You keep pasting each new iteration directly to the right of the previous one.
You are creating a sprawling, horizontal visual timeline of your decisions.
Precisely. It is a physical history of your digital process. When you inevitably tweak a curve too far and realize the design is failing, you don't have to mash the undo shortcut 50 times and pray you guess where you went wrong.
You just pan your screen to the left.
Yeah.
You look back at the previous iteration standing side by side. You identify the exact frame where the design still had its magic. You pick up that last good version, copy it, and start moving forward down a completely new, better path.
It prevents hours of agonizing frustration and lost work. It is literally version control for your sanity.
It really is.
Okay, let's talk about the actual mechanics of this digital tracing. We are using the pen tool, we are dropping anchor points, and I want to bring back an analogy that helps visualize this. Think of anchor points on a vector line exactly like joints in the human body.
That is a very vivid structural way to understand them.
Right, think about your arm. Your arm only bends at the elbow and the wrist. Because you only have two joints, your arm has a smooth, defined structure. Now imagine if you genetically engineered an arm to have
5 extra joints between the elbow and the wrist.
Exactly. If you tried to move it, your arm would flop around in this jagged, broken, wavy, uncontrollable manner. The rule of vectors is the same. You only want a joint exactly where you need the line to structurally bend.
And that perfectly encapsulates the dual power and peril of anchor points. They give you the immense power to manipulate the image, to change the angle of a digital knee or smooth out a rough line from your scan. But they must be used with extreme scarcity.
Having too many anchor points makes a digital design look inherently jagged, wobbly, and amateurish. It lacks tension.
It is universally the most common hallmark of a junior designer's work. They try to trace a perfect circle by clicking the pen tool 40 times around the edge.
Oh, that's painful to watch.
A seasoned professional traces a circle using exactly 4 points, utilizing the math of the Bezier handles to create the curve. The mandate here is to stop periodically, zoom in, inspect your vector paths, and proactively delete any and all unnecessary anchor points.
When it comes to vector points, less is always more. You want the maximum amount of curve tension, supported by the minimum amount of structural points.
Imagine watching this digital execution process unfold on that same sitting abstract figure we traced on paper. It takes us from the gritty scan to the flawless final vector.
Yes, it's a beautiful metamorphosis. In the first frame of your artboard, you have the imported, fine-tuned charcoal sketch. It's perfect, but it's made of pixels.
Frame 2 shows the initial digital outline you draw over it. It's incredibly rough. You just drop the necessary anchor points at the extremes of the shape, connecting them with straight, rigid lines before any curves are pulled.
It looks like a low-poly video game character. Frame 3 shows the defined proportions you've started pulling the handles, and the vector curves are starting to physically hug the scanned sketch beneath it.
And then, frame 4, you hide the sketch layer. The final outcome is revealed. You select the object and you see the vector paths.
There are remarkably few anchor points. The curves are flawlessly refined, holding incredible tension. The proportions are perfectly balanced. It is the pure mathematical realization of the human sketch.
It looks entirely finished, doesn't it? It looks ready for the world.
It really does. I would look at that crisp vector, save it as a PNG, and immediately invoice the client.
And that is exactly where you would fail as a professional.
I know.
Because you are not finished. Logos are hugely important to a company's branding, yes, but fundamentally, they're also relatively small, visually simple objects.
Which means there is absolutely nowhere to hide your mistakes.
Exactly. A complex illustration can hide a bad line in the details. A logo cannot. There is zero room for error. So before you even think about attaching final files to an email, you must run your work through a rigorous, non-negotiable 5-step essential checklist.
Let's walk through this pre-flight checklist. Step 1. Recheck all your anchors and ruthlessly remove any duplicate or unnecessary points that might have snuck in.
We just discussed the philosophy of this, but practically, it ensures the digital file is mathematically clean. A clean file ensures the curves will render flawlessly and efficiently at any scale, whether it's printed on a tiny business card or blown up to the size of a highway billboard.
Step 2. Ensure all angles, particularly those around the outside border or silhouette of the mark, are accurate. Use shape tools like perfect ellipses to check your hand-drawn curves, or use perfect squares to ensure your corners are truly 90 degrees. And aim for whole numbers for angles and whole numbers for CMYK color values.
We will dive incredibly deep into the psychology of those angles in just a moment. But regarding the CMYK colors, this is crucial. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, which is black.
It's the color model for physical printing, right?
Right. Printing presses don't mix light like a computer screen. They print tiny, overlapping half-tone dots of ink. If you give a printer a messy color value like 53.2% cyan, the processing software at the print house has to guess how to render that fraction of a percent using physical dots.
Which leads to what?
This often leads to muddy colors or weird visual artifacts. Locking in clean, whole numbers ensures crisp, mathematically reliable ink distribution every single time.
That is a massive technical tip. Step 3. Save all of your working files the entire timeline in your personal backed-up archives.
You not just save the final polished export. Save the massive artboard with all your copy and pasted iterations. Save the original high-res scans of your sketches.
Because you never ever know when a client will return 3 years later asking for a slight modification or wanting to revert to an idea you explored in phase 2. If you deleted the history, you have to start from scratch.
Exactly. Step 4. Refer back to your original signed contract to ensure you are actually exporting and delivering the exact file types and sizes you promised.
This is pure professionalism. EPS files for vector scaling, SVGs for web developers, PNGs with transparent backgrounds, PDFs for easy viewing. Deliver exactly what was agreed upon, organized cleanly in clearly labeled folders. Don't make the client hunt for what they need.
And finally, step 5. Create and send an invoice for any remaining balance the client owes you.
Always the best step of all. Never send the final, unwatermarked vector files until the final invoice is paid.
The ultimate final polish.
Okay, so you've hit send. The client has the files, they open them, they call you, absolutely thrilled. It's approved. We are officially done, right?
Wrong.
I knew it. I knew there was a catch.
This is perhaps the most surprising, counterintuitive revelation in the entire design process. The true mark of a master professional, the absolute zenith of the craft, happens after the client has already approved the digital execution. We enter the phase known as gridding, the mathematics of beauty.
This completely blew my mind when I learned about it. The client has already said yes, they are happy, the check is in the bank. Why on earth are we still working on a file?
Because regardless of how precise a designer tries to be with their eyes and their mouse during the digital execution phase, there will always be tiny, almost invisible human errors. Microscopic inconsistencies.
Elements that are misaligned by a fraction of a pixel. Basic geometric shapes that are 1/10 of a millimeter off from being perfectly round.
Exactly. Gridding is the final obsessive process aimed at fixing, refining, and mathematically fine-tuning all of those imperceptible human imperfections. You are overlaying a strict geometric framework onto your organic design and forcing the design to align to it.
But wait. The reality is, the adjustments to the logo after the gridding process are usually so minimal they are completely unnoticed by a normal viewer. So if the viewer can't see the difference and the client already approved the ungridded version, why spend hours doing it?
To understand why, we have to look deeply at the psychology of the human brain, specifically a concept called cognitive fluency.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let's look at the 1-2 degree fluctuation rule. Imagine you have drawn a dynamic, angled line in your logo. You measure it with the software, and because of a tiny technical slip of your hand while pulling the Bezier curve, the line sits at exactly a 43-degree angle.
Okay.
The rules of gridding mandate that you must take the time and care to adjust that entire shape so the angle sits at a mathematically perfect 45 degrees. Or, if an angle is sitting at 33.46 degrees, you must round it up and lock it at 35 degrees.
But why? Does a 43-degree angle really look that much worse than a 45-degree angle to the naked eye?
Consciously, no. Changes of a few degrees rarely affect the drastic overall visual impact of the work. However, subconsciously, it changes everything. Human brains are essentially highly evolved, calorie-conserving prediction machines.
Our visual cortex is constantly scanning the environment, looking for recognizable geometry and predictable patterns.
When a brain sees a perfect 45-degree angle, or a perfect 90-degree right angle, or a mathematically flawless circle, it processes that visual information with extreme, rapid ease. It takes very little caloric energy for the brain to categorize it. It inherently feels pleasing or right.
Because the brain doesn't have to work hard to figure out what it's looking at.
Exactly. But when the brain sees a 43.7-degree angle or a circle that is slightly warped like an egg, even if the conscious eye doesn't clock the error, the subconscious pattern recognition software in the brain has to work slightly harder to process it.
It creates a microscopic amount of cognitive friction. The brain asks, is that a mistake? Is that an optical illusion?
By forcing your organic design into whole numbers, perfect geometric grids, and exact ratios, you eliminate all of that subconscious cognitive friction. You demonstrate to the viewer's brain that the elements are carefully, deliberately placed, not randomly scattered. A gridded logo feels inherently more stable, more authoritative, and deeply more trustworthy.
That is incredible. The math literally creates subconscious trust in the brand. There are two great visual examples of this intense gridding. Imagine the construction grid for the Alphametry logo, a brand in the fintech industry in
A
France.
fantastic example.
You see the logo, which is this complex, interlocking circular form, but overlaid on top of it is a strict, undeniable architectural grid. And right there in the documentation, it explicitly points out that a central diagonal cut is locked at a perfect 69-degree angle. Everything aligns to that math.
And then there's the seagull mark for a soccer club. The final bird shape is built entirely out of intersecting perfect circles, strict horizontal lines, and flawless diagonal radiuses.
When you see the grid lines over the bird, it doesn't look like a drawing, it looks like an architectural blueprint for a machine.
It is the organic geometry of nature, perfected and immortalized by human mathematics.
But I have to push back again here. This sounds like an obsession. Do we have to grid absolutely everything? What if the logo is fundamentally a completely organic shape? What if it's a dynamic splash of paint or a loose hand-drawn mascot character?
Right, that's a very valid concern.
If we force a strict geometric grid of circles and squares onto a splash of paint, won't we completely kill the kinetic energy and soul of the drawing?
That is the exact danger of taking this too far. And the masters of design anticipate this exact problem. They offer a profound golden rule for dealing with complex organic forms. If something does not naturally work within the grid, make it work outside the grid.
Oh, thank God. That is a massive relief.
Yes. You must recognize that some organic marks contain highly complex sweeping curves that simply cannot be replicated or contained by simple geometric shapes like perfect circles or ovals.
Sometimes a beautiful dynamic curve is a combination of several different round shapes fluidly bleeding into one another.
In such cases, it is entirely unnecessary and actually deeply detrimental to the art to try and force those elements into a grid.
Overgridding causes visual confusion. It chokes the design.
Exactly. Gridding is a tool meant to align, clarify, and adjust. It is not a prison sentence for the artwork. Using too many grids makes a work look confusing and tortured, especially if they are forced where they don't belong.
There is an amazing visual contrast that illustrates this trap perfectly. Think of it as the crane versus the whale.
Yes, let's unpack those two examples to see the right way and the wrong way to do this.
First, imagine the crane logo. It's a beautiful, elegant, highly stylized profile of a crane standing still. Next to it, you see the construction grid drawn by the designer. And the grid works flawlessly.
The sweeping, graceful arc of the bird's neck perfectly aligns with the edge of a massive, perfect circle.
The sharp, pointed head is defined by the intersection of an oval. The straight, stable body sits cleanly within a vertical rectangle. The geometric circles naturally define and enhance the bird's organic shape. It is a harmonious, effortless grid.
The math clarifies the form without suffocating it.
But then look at the whale logo. The final logo itself is a fantastic, bold graphic of a massive whale breaching out of the water, but the image showing its construction grid is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, it's a mess.
It is a terrifying web of geometry. There are dozens and dozens of intersecting circles of all different sizes layered over every square inch of the whale. The circles are overlapping the fins, the curvature of the tail, the organic belly stripes. None of it aligns naturally.
It looks completely forced, incredibly overused, and frankly completely unnecessary. It looks exactly like a designer trying to defensively prove to a client that they use math, rather than actually using math to improve the design.
It is the definition of performative gridding. It's fake precision. That image is a warning to all designers. Basic foundational shapes, the perfect circles, squares, and triangles that anchor the core of the design, must be mathematically perfect.
But you must let complex emotional curves breathe. You fix the alignments, you fix the horizontal baselines, you lock in the whole number angles, but you do absolutely not force a circle where a circle does not naturally belong.
Know when to stop the math and let the art exist. Okay, so we have survived the grid. We have a mathematically perfect, breathing, highly functioning icon. The files are clean. We are finally truly done.
Almost.
You're killing me. What could possibly be left?
Yeah, we have this perfect, isolated icon. But in the real world of commerce, an icon rarely lives entirely alone. You have to place that beautiful piece of math next to typography, the company's actual name.
And if you do this wrong, if you just type the name in a random font and slap it next to the icon, you ruin all the math, the balance, and the psychological trust you just spent weeks perfecting.
Which brings us to our final, crucial segment, Type Lockup. the final marriage.
Ah, the lockup. This is where the icon meets the word mark, and they have to figure out how to live in the same house.
Exactly. The type lockup stage is defined as the process of finalizing the exact positioning, spacing, and relative proportions of all the logo elements together. The icon, the primary word mark, and often the secondary tagline underneath it.
And there's a cardinal, unbreakable rule in professional branding. Once these elements are balanced and locked up by the designer, their relationship should never be taken apart, resized, or altered by the client.
Never.
But practically speaking, the client will need to use it in drastically different environments. A giant horizontal highway billboard requires a completely different spatial layout than a tiny square app icon sitting on a crowded phone screen. You can't use the exact same lockup for both.
Which is exactly why the practical application of this rule requires the designer to do the heavy lifting up front. You must create multiple specific lockups for each brand. You give the client the flexibility they need to operate, but you strictly dictate the mathematical terms of that flexibility.
For example, a lockup designed for a corporate letterhead might be very complex, featuring the icon on the left, the word mark in the center, a tagline below it, all in a wide horizontal layout.
But the lockup provided for a mobile website header might be completely reduced to just a specially proportioned version of the icon itself. You have to constantly consider the visual complexity of the elements as the physical size shrinks. A highly intricate horizontal lockup becomes completely illegible at 16 pixels wide.
You are designing a responsive system, not just a static image. There's some great visual examples of these distinct integrations between type and icon. Take the Min.io logo, a cloud services company.
It has this tall, rigidly geometric bird icon sitting perfectly centered above a bold, widely tracked sans serif word mark. The genius of the lockup is that the letters share the exact same strict line weight and geometric rigidity as the bird. They feel identical in tone.
Then there's the ACT Research Center logo, where the lockup is totally different. The letters A, C, and T are massive and heavy, and a tiny, incredibly intricate circle made of jumbled letters and numbers acts as a small punctuation mark at the very end of the word. The extreme contrast in size is the lockup.
And then there's what I consider the masterclass example of lockup precision.
Yeah.
The Georgian Railway logo.
Yes. If you look at the actual brand guideline page for this, it is staggering. It features a lockup of a very thick, heavy, interconnected GR monogram positioned exactly next to the words Georgian Railway and a small EST 1872.
The intense precision here is mathematical poetry. The brand book provides a diagram showing that the cap height, the literal vertical height of the typography, is exactly mathematically the same size as the thickness of the horizontal structural blocks within the GR monogram icon. They are bound by the same underlying geometric unit.
And the guidelines explicitly fiercely state, no changes are allowed in the spacing, the letter form, or the proportions of the logo type.
That is the ultimate art of balance. And there are rules for finding that balance when pairing fonts with icons. Contrast is your primary tool. If the logo symbol you designed is highly ornate, incredibly detailed, and visually loud, the accompanying typography should be a plain, quiet, highly legible sans serif font to ground it.
If you have massive, bold, heavy geometric elements in the icon, they often need thin, delicate, elegant typography as a visual counterpoint, so the whole thing doesn't feel oppressively heavy.
But the aim isn't just to create contrast for the sake of contrast, right? They can't just look like they belong to two different companies. They have to complement each other. They have to share DNA.
Exactly. You are striving for synergy. And there is a beautiful, highly advanced piece of advice for achieving this. If your logo symbol has a specific, peculiar quirk, let's say you designed a leaf icon, and the edge of the leaf has a very unique, slightly asymmetric curvature.
If you can carefully, subtly apply that exact same unique curvature to the terminal of a single letter in the typography, say the tail of a lowercase a, you create a deep subconscious synergy between the mark and the name.
The viewer's brain recognizes the repeating pattern. They feel like the icon and the typography were born from the exact same genetic code.
I have to admit, as we talk through this final section, obsessing over tweaking the kerning space between two letters by a millimeter, adjusting font line weights by a fraction of a percentage, painstakingly making text slightly more bold just to match a geometric block.
To an outsider, this sounds incredibly tedious. It sounds like absolute madness.
Questionable importance. It feels crazy to spend 3 hours moving a letter V 1 pixel to the left. It feels crazy, but it is the ultimate truth of the graphic design profession. The difference between standard bold text and slightly more bold text, or that tiny microscopic tweak to the kerning space between an A and a V. These things may not be readily, consciously apparent to most normal people walking down the street looking at a billboard.
But those tiny, invisible, agonizing, tedious mathematical details are the exact difference between a good designer and a great designer.
That is the line in the sand. That is what you are actually getting paid for.
And the promise to anyone starting their career is this. As you become more experienced, as you force yourself to do the math and execute the grids, these agonizing details will eventually become second nature. You will begin to see the kerning errors instantly, without thinking. The math will become intuitive. You will achieve cognitive fluency in your own workflow.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Let's take a breath and look back at the massive journey we just took.
We started with a vague, terrifying design brief and a list of abstract adjectives. We protected our fragile ideas from the client by building a compartmentalized architectural mood board.
We escaped the mathematical straitjacket of the computer to feverishly sketch dozens of terrible, chaotic ideas on paper, just hoping to create the conditions for one lucky accident.
We refined that accident, we traced it in analog layers, we digitized it using a strict copy and paste timeline to protect our sanity.
We subjected the raw vector to the rigorous evolutionary mathematics of the grid, ensuring our angles comforted the subconscious human brain. And finally, we married that perfect icon to typography with unbreakable, pixel-perfect lockups.
It is a phenomenal, exhausting transformation. You are taking a messy, unpredictable human impulse and forging it into a mathematically precise, highly functioning brand mark.
It really is an incredible pipeline. And I want to make sure everyone listening knows exactly where this framework, these examples, and this incredible philosophy came from.
Today's deep dive was powered by Principles of Logo Design.
It is an absolute must-read for anyone serious about this career path.
Truly. You can grab your own copy at https://amzn.fornint5e, but let me give you a shortcut. Even easier, you can buy the book right now by scanning the QR code of the book link provided in the episode description below. And if you found value in this incredibly deep breakdown, please hit that follow button for more technical design breakdowns and career-building content. We absolutely love unpacking the invisible mechanics of this stuff for you.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We spent a lot of time today talking about how human imperfection, the messy sketch, the wobbly pencil line, the lucky accident on the chaotic battlefield of the sketchpad is what actually births a truly original, resonant concept. The computer only serves to mathematically polish that human soul later.
It raises a massive, important question for you to explore on your own as you build your career.
As artificial intelligence gets infinitely better and faster at generating the perfect final math of a design, the grids, the curves, the lockups, the raw, ungridded, messy human sketch actually become the most valuable, most expensive, and most uncopyable part of a graphic designer skill set.
Wow. Will the lucky accident become our ultimate job security? I'll be thinking about that all week. See you next time.